Hey everyone and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I'm going to be sharing all the books that I am hopefully going to be reading in November. So if you're wondering how my October TBR went, the answer is not great. And I know why it is. It's because about halfway through the month I started to feel like I was in a little bit of a genre slump, and that was not great because half of the books on my TBR were fantasies and I just didn't want to read fantasy, so I started to go a little bit rogue, but I am starting to feel like I'm coming out of that slump now. So I would like to put a few fantasy books on my November TBR, but my focus is definitely going to be on finishing series because there's a lot of series that I've started this year that I haven't completed yet, and so I would like to try and complete some of those before the end of the year. I have also only done 5 rolls this month because I am going to be starting a new job in November, and so I don't know how much I'm going to be reading. I mean, I will be commuting to the office, so I will have time to read on the train and while I'm walking with audiobooks and stuff, but I didn't want to put any extra pressure on myself when I'm already going to be, I guess, quite stressed. I'm more excited, I think, than stressed, but you never know when stuff like this happens what kind of mood you're going to be in. So if you haven't watched any of my TBR games before, then I will leave a link in the description to the playlist, but otherwise let's go with roll number 1. Okay, so here we go with roll number 1, which is a 4. Can you even see that? That is a thriller, and the prompt is rated high on Goodreads. So as you would have seen, for my first roll I need to read a thriller that is highly rated on Goodreads, and for this I went onto the Goodreads app on my phone and I organised the books on my TBR in order of average rating. Then I scrolled down until I came across a book that I either own physically or own on my Kindle or that I can get through Scribd, and the book that I came across first was Next of Kin by Kia Abdullah. I read another book by this author, I think it was over the summer, it was a few months ago now, and I did really enjoy it, and the premise for this sounded hard-hitting but also interesting. So Next of Kin is a courtroom thriller, and I believe it follows a woman who accidentally leaves her 3-year-old nephew in the car on the hottest day of the year. So yeah, it feels like it might be difficult to read in places. I know that the last book that I read by this author was the same, like it was quite difficult to read in places just because of the topic that it covered, but I do tend to enjoy courtroom thrillers, and I think this only came out a few months ago, so there's not many reviews for it yet. I can't remember if I mentioned this, but I am going to listen to the audiobook for this because it is available through Scribd. Okay, roll number 2 is a 3, which is contemporary, and the prompt is a TBR vet. So for my next roll I need to read a contemporary that is also a TBR vet, and for this I'm going to go for P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han, which is the second book in the To All the Boys I've Loved Before series. I read the first book in October actually, I read it a few weeks ago, and I really enjoyed it. I really liked the narration on the audiobook. This is another audiobook that's available through Scribd. The whole series is on there, and it's a YA contemporary series, so it's quite easy to listen to. And this is a TBR vet because I have been wanting to read this series ever since I watched the Netflix movies. Book 1 follows a teenage girl called Lara Jean who used to write letters whenever she had a crush on a guy because it was just her way of expressing her feelings. However, at the start of book 1 these letters end up getting sent out and stuff happens. The story goes from there. If you've seen the movie then you probably already know what happens, but yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed the first book and I'm hoping I enjoy the second book too. Okay, roll number 3 is a 1, which is fantasy, and the prompt is mood read. So as you will have seen, roll number 3 came up as fantasy and the prompt to go with it was mood read, thankfully, which means that as long as I read a fantasy book in November then I can count it for this prompt. And I was trying to think what fantasy books I might be in the mood for, and I know that there were a few fantasy books on my October TBR that I didn't quite get round to, so I might read one of those. But then another series that I keep thinking about recently is the His Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman. So I reread the first book in this series, Northern Lights, back in December last year. This was one of my favourite fantasy series when I was a kid, and so I've been wanting to reread it for years, and I really loved rereading Northern Lights, and so I wanted to get round to this year at some point, just haven't had time, and so maybe I might read this because it's quite a short book, so it's one that I could probably finish over a weekend weekend or within a few days. I forgot to mention the plot for this, but basically this series is set in a world that is sort of parallel to ours, where every human has an animal companion that lives outside their bodies that's called a demon. And the first book is this adventure storyline where the main character Lyra is trying to uncover a mystery behind why certain kids are going missing. That was a really bad explanation, but this series has also recently been turned into a TV show, and I think that actually the TV show is the next series due out soon, because I'm pretty sure that series 2 came out last December or last winter. So are we due the next series soon? I'm not actually sure, but yeah, like I said, this was one of my favourite series when I was a kid, and it does give me that nostalgia feeling. I'm not sure how I would feel about it if I was reading it for the first time as an adult, but yeah, it's the nostalgia for me, which is why I love it so much. Okay, so role number 4 is 1, which is fantasy again, and the prompt is continue a series. So as you will have seen, role number 4 came up as fantasy again. However, the prompt was perfect because the prompt was to continue a series, and as I have said several times in this video, that is one of my goals for the end of the year, is to try and complete some series, or at least try and continue in series that I'm already in the middle of. And the book that I've chosen for this prompt is The Bone Shard Emperor by Andrea Stewart. This is the second book in the Drowning Empire series, I think is the name of the series. It's the sequel to The Bone Shard Daughter, which I read earlier this year and really enjoyed. I think I gave it 4 stars, but it's one that does keep coming up and that I keep thinking about. I actually have an arc of this book through NetGalley because it doesn't come out until I think it's the end of November, so I do want to try and read it before then so I can review it. This series is set in a world where you have bone shard magic, so the Emperor uses bone shard magic to create these animal-like constructs, and they help him to govern this world. And there's a few different characters that you're following, but the main character, or one of the main characters, is the Emperor's daughter Lynn, and she's been having memory problems, and her dad has basically turned around to her and said that he is gonna choose her foster brother or her adoptive brother to be his heir if she can't learn how to use magic again. There's a few other characters that you follow that are dotted around these islands within this empire, and basically there's this rebellion that's brewing because a few people are not happy with the way that things are currently being run. I think what I liked most about the first book was the world building and how it went in a direction that I was not expecting. There's also lots of LGBTQ+ rep in this series, and the first book sort of ended on a cliffhanger, so I'm excited to see how things continue in this next book. Okay, so I think this is role number 5, which is the final role, and that is a 5, which is my choice, and the prompt is library book. So the final role came up as my choice, which means I can pick any genre, and the prompt to go with it was library book. And there's one book that I do have out in the library at the moment, which is Valor by John Gwynne. However, I have not been in the mood to read this because it's an epic fantasy and it's quite long, and I know that with the first book in this series it did take me quite a while to get into, so I don't know if I am going to be in the mood for this in November. However, I have also reserved The Mime Order by Samantha Shannon, which is book 2 in the Bone Season series, and I know that when I read the first book in that series I read it quite quickly because there was just something so addictive about the writing, so I don't know. I don't know which one I'm going to read. I might read The Mime Order or I might read Valor. Did I mention this is the second book in the Faithful and the Fallen series? It's basically set in a world where there are giants and where there's this ancient prophecy that might be about to come true, and there's going to be this battle between good versus evil. And what I really liked actually about the first book in the series was how you weren't sure as you were going through whether certain characters were going to be on which side, and so I would like to continue this series at some point because the ending to the first book was really epic, and I've heard that the series does get better as it goes along. Then The Mime Order is the second book in the Bone Season series, I might have said that already, and that follows a main character called Paige Mahoney, who is clairvoyant, and she lives in this world which is sort of a parallel world to ours where clairvoyancy is illegal. At the start of the first book she's captured and taken to this place where she learns what happens to clairvoyants when they are captured, and the world does open up a lot more from there. I did have a few issues with the first book where I was really struggling to understand the magic system, and so I want to try and continue the series quite soon before I've forgotten everything that I learned in the first book. But yeah, I think that brings me to the end of the video, so thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, I feel like this is going to be a really short video because I haven't been speaking for that long, but hopefully you did still enjoy it. If you have made it this far, let me know in the comments if you've read any of the books that I talked about in this video, and let me know if there's any books on your November TBR that you're excited for. Also, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and click subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time. Bye!